Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hey,
How you doing?
hey everybody.
This is good. This is good. Another night.
Hi, everybody.
You sound like it's
so
good.
scared.
You said this is good. Here we are. All right. Welcome. Oh, it's been a couple of weeks, a couple of episodes since I've not been here, and he's already starting.
He missed you.
If you say so. You know what? We can't act like that tonight because we have
That's right. That's right. That's right.
That's my mom, the mother of the bishop. That's it.
That's
my mom.
Okay, not here, baby.
You going too far.
Okay.
What you know about that?
I know what show.
You know that show?
Two down south.
Oh, okay.
That's what we watch.
What's happening? That's my mom.
Please. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Couch Conversations with Bishop G.
That was
that
nice.
took a lot.
Yes, it took a lot.
It was very hard. I really wanted to stay when I called you, but
Right.
neither here nor there. So every first and third Thursday, you can catch us here on Couch Conversations. And tonight, we're not on the couch. We decided to do a round table because Mother's Day is coming up, right? And so, happy Mother's Day to every mother. We appreciate you all. We love you all. And so tonight, we wanted to have the mother of the good bishop.
Thank you for calling me the good bishop. Thank you.
Whew. Every time we really just try. We just try to do so good, y'all. Like, we really try to do so well.
Okay, keep going.
We try to prep him for every episode and everything.
Here we go. All right.
So tonight, we have the one and only Lady Deborah Dennis.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Lady.
I'm glad to be here. My first name is not Lady.
I got it honestly.
I
got it honestly. Listen.
Ooh, what would you like us to call you tonight?
I mean.
Sorry. Deborah Dennis.
Thank you. Yeah.
Also, and better known as to us, right? To me and Neil as Lady D.
Yeah. I'm just trying to make it a level playing field.
That's my mom.
I'm telling you, it flows from the head down. Those Dennises, I'm trying to tell y'all.
Archbishop said it's because
Those Dennises, definitely, it flows from everyone. So this is what we got to look forward to tonight.
This.
Can we have prayer first or something like that? I mean, but this is a religious. I mean, we saints. I mean, or is that?
Listen, you are a mother, and we can.
Well, God, in the name of Jesus, we thank you so very much for this day. But this is the day that you've made, and we are rejoicing and we're glad in it. We thank you for life. We thank you for health. We thank you for strength. And God, we even thank you for the ability to be able to express our love that we have in this conversation with one another, and also with those who are not physically here with us, but who have joined us through our social media. And we're so grateful to you. We thank you for the plan that you have for our lives. And we pray that this session will be a blessing to the listeners and to the panelists as well. In Jesus' name, everybody say,
Amen.
Amen. Very good.
Just like a mother. I love it. That's right. Come in and set the tone and set order. There's nothing wrong with that. So thank y'all for joining us. Please like and share. Share this episode tonight. I believe it's going to be a good conversation. We will be, of course, loving on mothers and finding out some information about the man of God tonight, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
That people want to know. Hey, Darian Dennis. You were also supposed to be here tonight, but that's also another conversation for another time. So please share this video, and if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to drop that in the comment box. So Bishop,
Yes.
have you had a good week so far?
I've had a great week so far. It's been a busy week, but it's been a very productive week. There's a whole lot that's going on. I feel like God is revealing to us how the church should be impacting the world and the culture. And I'm not, and I want us all not to ever be in a place where we are so concerned about what's happening in the world that we forget that before there can be a manifestation of healing, there must be a manifestation of sickness. Before there's a manifestation of power, there may be the necessary manifestation of devastation. And that there are some precursors for that which reveals the glorious power of Jesus Christ. So you don't allow the precursors to cause you to be paralyzed, so then you cannot be used. So I'm excited about the season that we're in, and I'm anticipating some great things. And everybody should be in a place of anticipation, especially when you're in the midst of a pandemic. You ought to be in a place of anticipation because of those things. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
The word pandemic, maybe nobody has on mask. Are each of you, have you gotten your vaccinations, or should I go upstairs and get a mask?
I'm vaccinated. Fully.
I'm vaccinated.
Sure, because we're kind of close, and I don't want the audience to think that we're breaking the rules.
That's good.
Okay,
That's right.
Yeah, I'm vaccinated. Yep. So
Continue.
okay. so I think that's just really where we need to make sure that we are. Is where we're in a place where we really understand. But tonight we're going to really talk about mothers, right? So this is our Mother's Day special, and I'm glad to have my mother on with us tonight. And I hope it doesn't sound like gloom and doom, but it's just a reality. Is that this last year I lost my mother-in-law, and I think that we need to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to appreciate our family. There are we've been brought through a particular family, and everybody's family does not always look alike. But if you're a believer, then you know that your steps have been ordered. And so if your mother is not a Deborah Dennis, but your mother is a Betty Robinson, or your mother is a Claretta or Henrietta, or whoever they are, then that may be what was needed for your life to be who God has called you to be. And so don't allow some things to divide your family. What God has put together, let no man put asunder, right? So what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. We normally, of course, equate that only to marriage, but I believe we could also put that into our family relationship, because I did not come through the loins of a Deborah Dennis, but by God. So God put that together. There's no man who put that together. So if God put that together, then let no man put that asunder. And that man could be me, it could be my mother, it could be my brothers. I have two brothers. And then, of course, we have a lot of people who we call our sisters. We didn't have any sisters, so we have a lot of people who we call kind of sisters. But we don't allow anyone to put that asunder, because God is the one who actually put that relationship together. And there's a lot that comes from those type of relationships. So that's how my week is. To answer your question, how was your week?
So before you get into the meat of what you're going to talk about,
Okay.
first of all, Lady Deb, how was your week? Because I don't think we asked, and we have years of guests.
My week was very productive. I have on the top floor, I had extra space in my house, which we converted to an office for me, which eventually became a junk room. So we were able on this week to clean out the junk room.
Oh, did you?
Yes, and a piece that I ordered came in, and I was upstairs putting that together. I had a good day. I was also, you all may not know it, but I'm a student at DLU. And so I was also listening to some of the recordings and studying some of my work. So I've had a pretty productive day today. It's been really good.
You didn't ask me to help you with anything.
I don't want to cheat.
What? I'm talking about not you. I'm talking about your the office, putting some things together in your space.
You all can certainly help me as soon as this is over, because I do have a couple of pieces that I need some extra.
Next some hands on. We got it. We got it. Yeah. Come on. Yeah.
Oh, so I can leave now. Got my help?
Lady B, I have a question. Sure. Do you, when it comes to like Mother's Day and things of that sort, do you like to like take a couple of days to yourself, or would you prefer to be around your children and your grandchildren, or is it kind of like I mean, I know that Mother's Day is typically only one day, but I feel like when you're a mother, Mother's Day is every day, right? But when it comes to this holiday, this national holiday, do you like to, leading up to it, do you like to do things just for yourself, or would you prefer to be with your boys and your grandbabies, or how do you like to do that?
Well, my family dynamic is may not be the norm, but I spend a lot of time with my family. So Mother's Day is not that special for me because my family is always supportive, loving, there, telephone calls, those types of things, text messages. We have family text messages, and we cut up on those, and and then we're gonna pray for one another for certain things, those types of things. So, and it's a little different for me.
Okay.
So Mother's Day, if nobody called me or gave me a card in my family to say Happy Mother's Day, I wouldn't have a problem with it because I know they love me. We're just that close.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Isn't it awesome?
That's amazing. I think that's really good to hear because I think that for a lot of children, or especially like, let me say from my generation or millennials, I was just speaking with some of my friends this week, and we were kind of trying to figure out like, well, what you getting your mother, and what you're getting your mother, and we all kind of like, I don't know, right? But I think it's because some parents or some mothers are kind of like, well, you got to give me something, or I need to be acknowledged, or I need to have a card, or I need to have something.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the child or the children, we're kind of like antsy, like, well, I don't know what to do, but I know that my mother has to have something. So I think that it's pretty refreshing to hear you say like you're okay either way.
Yeah, but I'm
because
not
you're used
speaking
to
for
it
the rest
already.
of them.
Oh, no, I know. No. I know you're not speaking, but that's just really good to kind of hear that that's not a big. I mean, not that it's not a big deal, but it's just that you're being shown love all the time. So it's not just this one day out of the year.
I think that's probably part of the point that, and I don't want to speak for mom, but is that if you really do things throughout the year, then you don't have to necessarily make special efforts on particular days. And growing up in a house, it's so funny because I didn't feel like we did birthdays as a big deal. Like, some people do birthdays and, it's like invite the whole community over. And we didn't have those type of birthday parties and stuff like that when we were growing up. There was no, 16 boy bash or anything like that. But we always, the love and the family dynamic from a little child was always there. I've been teased about being, the kid who can remember things when he was real super young. And I can, but you remember things that are impressionable. So I remember, the joy that we had. I remember, I don't know the name of the street. My mother and dad probably would, but I remember, how they would care for me and how they would watch over me so much. So even when I got a piece of ice stuck in my throat that I was swallowing, that my mother, she's like, I don't remember. That's what she's doing right now. She's thinking, I do not remember this. Here you go, one of his stories. But we were living in an apartment that was like the townhouse like, and And they brought me downstairs, and the ice was stuck, and then they took me over, and they made me drink hot water. And Deacon Bloom was actually there at the house that day. So I remember how, it's so funny, right? And I wasn't even school age. I wasn't in kindergarten yet. But I remember how they were so alert, and Greg, you're gonna be all right, and and like, oh, it's like my family's making a fuss over me, and it placed something in my heart, but it wasn't a scarring. It was that joy of that family dynamic, and that type of experience has been one that has been lifelong. Now, I'm not saying I've never been hurt by my parents or anything like that, or that I've never done anything wrong. But I'm sure somewhere in my 49 years, I may have done one or two things wrong. I'm just saying.
Just one or two in the 49 years.
That's hard.
You want to know one or two?
We just want to know, how was Bishop as a child? Were you a little bit mischievous, always up to something?
He wasn't like that. He was a crybaby.
Oh,
He was very emotional, very, very sensitive.
okay.
And so you see that now, even when he's preaching or ministering, he still has that.
Yes.
He was also the type of kid who, I think we were at convocation, or either, I don't know, I think it was a district meeting. And you had to go to the restroom, so I let you go into the restroom. I stood outside, and you had a conversation with a senior elder, a pastor. He had, really had
Chambers.
that's right, Elder Chambers. You had an intelligent conversation.
Wow.
How old were you? I think you
I don't know.
weren't that old.
Maybe 6?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about, 5 or 6 years old. And
just talk.
yeah, but the amazing thing about it, I think it's always a Ralph Dennis thing going on, because it wasn't just him. Reginald and Darian literally had no problem as children having intelligent conversations with adults. It certainly didn't come from me. It certainly did not come to me. Because if someone who I assumed was greater than me, if they came up and said, "Hi, how are you doing? How was your day?" and they tried to have a conversation, I would be like, "Huh?" As a child, I would, so certainly didn't come from me. But I think it speaks to, I know we're talking about mothers, but I guess I'm bringing fathers in there too. The parents, the destiny. What the parent, you were here on earth to produce this, to give him glory,
Right.
And so it starts from the time our children are just like itty bitty babies. It really does.
So can I just and I know you have a thought on then, like, train up a child, like the scripture that we normally talk about, train up a child where they should go. How do you see that passage of scripture? How do you see it needing to impact how we raise our kids? Like, are we training up our child to be preachers? Or are we training
That's exactly it. I believe that the child's the way they play their games, the conversations that they have, the things that they are interested in, all points to who they are to be. And I use that B, a capital B and a capital E. Who they are to be in the earth, who are their purpose and destiny. It really does. And I believe parents do see it. What I believe, though, is that as parents, we have not been trained, or we have no example. It's not vocalized, it's not common among us to talk about, my child is a this. And because they do this and they do that, and I know this is why they're here on this earth. Now, of course, nowadays there are more parents who talk about that.
Sure.
But back in my day, they didn't say that. There was no talk about it. And I believe it's very, very important, not only for parents to be able to say who their child be, but also for the church. Give space for the children, for the babies to be, and don't critique them. If anything, that critique should come from loving, massaging hands, not from, that wasn't right what you did, you know, because that's discouraging. It's embarrassing to kids, you know. Okay, let me be quiet.
Oh,
That
no.
was good. That was really
We can
good.
enjoy that.
Yeah.
So I think I want to know, like, how do you feel that you, as a parent, you as well as Archbishop, how did you all massage their purpose as children? Like, was it kind of like, did you want to, so like Bishop grew to be a bishop, but I know that not necessarily,
Grew to
I
be a
mean, he's a
bishop.
bishop now, but I'm saying, like, I know that growing up, he wasn't, well, I don't know, maybe he might have been at home preaching or something like that, but how did you kind of put him in that forefront, or how did you all decide that?
I'm gonna use Darian as an example.
That's good. Thank you.
Hey, that's good.
When Darian was somewhere between, I think he was about 8 years old, so somewhere like around 7 to 8 years old,
Okay.
Darian came downstairs with a piece of paper and said, "Mommy, look, I wrote a song."
Wow.
He literally wrote a song, and I know the word angels, I don't remember the words. Of course, I made the mistake of giving my 3 sons all of the things that I saved for them from the time they were like in kindergarten, really young, and none of them had,
I don't know any
they
of
don't
these.
have those. But the actual paper, I held on to it, the actual paper that he wrote the song, and it was about angels. And so to this day, we would get in the car, all of us, we would get in the car, drive, and we,
Chevy Love.
is that what it was? I'm
Chevy
not in the
Love?
car, so.
Yeah, it was a Chevy Love pickup.
Pickup.
Yeah, me and you, I'm talking about me, you, and Darian, when you would go to work and we would sing. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, at any point, we
Yeah.
would sing. We
Yeah.
always sang the song. We
Yes.
always very musical.
Yes,
And
we
so-
are.
And we would sing parts. We would sing parts.
And what was your part?
Because he's ready. He's ready. He's ready.
You're so terrible. You're so terrible. Hey, what was your part? To plug up the microphone.
Sorry.
Yeah, but it was really good. Normally I did the soprano part, and then the boys would share between the 2 lower parts. Yeah, and it just worked out. That's what we did. That's probably why he knows so many hymns. You know, but
Indeed.
Nice. Okay. So even outside of church, you all were just kind of encouraging them to find their paths, even as children, or just massaging what it was that they like to do. Because I know Bishop G talks often about how he was into insurance at one point in time, like he worked for an insurance agency. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out, because I think now, like, parents, as you stated earlier, they do kind of embrace the different avenues that children go into. Some children, of course, play sports. Some children don't play sports at all, but then they may be musically inclined, or they may like to read, or they may like to talk to adults at 6 years old or something like that, and just knowing that that's sort of what they will do. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out, was there any like method that you all use as like parents, just kind of encouraging them to?
there was no method.
Okay.
To my knowledge, my husband may have had examples, but I had no examples. There was no paradigm.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we may not have even said he's going to be this when he grows up. But we saw the signs, and we encouraged the signs that we saw without giving it the end product or what this will result in. So we didn't do that. I had no pattern for that. So now, if I knew then what I know now, I would have an actual process to follow and timeline to go with it, to be able to train up the child in the way that they should go. Because when they're old, they will not depart from it. So nowadays we have children of parents, children who have parents who did not influence them. And so their next door neighbor's the one, or their classmate is the one that's influencing them. And I believe that that's why we are experiencing in our country so much hatred, so much crime, is because, well, I know some of the influence, when I think about it, some of it had to come from some of the parents. I won't identify a particular
Right.
sect of people, but clearly that is, but I do believe that with the knowledge that we have today, we know that we've got to be mothering. We've got to be mothering, not just the parent, but we have to be fathering. It's key. It's key.
That's good.
No.
Kind of speaks to, I know we reference the scripture, but it's one of the oldest debates in psychology, the nature versus nurture. You know, it really speaks to that. So for anyone who might be watching, excuse me, that may not be scripturally inclined to understand what we're saying, the flip side of that is that you see it in science. It's something that you were taught, or a debate that you are taught in science. And people see it from different perspectives, but from what Lady D is sharing with us, it is important that the child be nurtured.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Even though they came up in a certain environment, that can change by way of, you know, nurturing or mothering or fathering.
Exactly. It's for us, for my household, you know, because of course my children are adopted, and so we see that clearly, the nature versus the nurture, right? And I think to what Mom's talking about is that we still see I believe we try to, and scientifically, we try to divide it as if it's one or the other.
Right.
Where I believe what it ought to be is that you nurture what is natured. Right? So there is something that is intrinsic about that child. Nurture that and help them become that. And then you know what to get rid of. I mean, I was talking to my son today, and he said something to me about a bad thought he had. I had this bad thought, and so I pressed him until he told me what the bad thought was. And when he said it, I almost fell out my chair. I was like, oh my goodness, where did you get the thought from? It's like, why would you think that? But at the same time, now I know of how my nurturing, because of the nature, must be, right? So I know some things that I have to do. I think I think part of what my parents did with me, I watched Devin Franklin today. I think that's his name. Megan Good's Devon. I always mix it up like that. Devin Devon Franklin, and he was talking about today how, and of course he pre-recorded it, but he was talking about how he's talking about to Dr. Oz and how you need to understand and appreciate the journey, and so that whole nurture piece becomes part of the journey. And what he said to Dr. Oz was that, Dr. Oz, you have no control over how many people who watch your show. Your responsibility is to make sure your production is good, is to make sure that your advertisers are lined up, is to make sure that your cameramen have the right angles, is to do those type of things. And then the end result comes because of what you did in the process. And I think that's the same thing when it's train up a child in a way that it should go, is that you're doing all of that middle work so that the end can be. You can't, if my parents came to me at 16 and said, Greg, you're gonna pastor this church and you're gonna be a bishop. Please, are you kidding me? What are you talking about? But if you put in me some things, if you give me some qualities, if you teach me some lessons, if the values that you give me are values that align with the direction that I'm going, then that's the place that I end up. So that's good.
You know, one of the things that you said that I really like is the fact that your son felt safe enough to share with you. I thought something or dreamed something, how he said it, that was bad. I mean, how many children would really literally say that or have the freedom to say that and not feel like they're going to be attacked by their parent? So it's good that open communication is very, very key. That way, when negative things are going on, somebody's bullying them, somebody's molesting them, or whatever it could be, they are free and comfortable to come home and share with you their experiences, what happened, without being rebuked for it.
So what do you say, and this could be social worker, Erica, that's coming out now a little bit. What do you say, Lady D, because I heard you say earlier about not, some people didn't have that blueprint, right, of how to be a mother or how to be a father. So what do you say to those parents or those mothers who weren't raised that way, where it's kind of like, and we've talked about this before, Bishop, on the couch, of how sometimes our families are like, when we think about like therapy or stuff like that, and we're kind of like, some of our families are like, no to therapy, and what happens in our house stays in our house, right? And so, and some parents are old school, and it's kind of like, you don't come and talk to me about that, right? Or certain things you don't come or address your parents with, or feel comfortable enough to saying that. So if you have that parent who is kind of like, well, I wasn't raised that way. I was raised to, all I got to do is make sure these kids are fed, clothed, they go to school, and that's that. All the extra of the conversations or them coming to me to talk to me about anything, I don't really know how to do that or how to accept that type of thing. Is there, right, or I don't know how to create that space. So is there like something that you would say to that parent to encourage that? Because I think that's really a thing. Like some people just don't know, some parents don't know how to do that because they weren't raised that way, or they were just raised with this laser focus, and I'm just, this is all I have to do as a parent. But I think that with all of the things that are going on now, right, and things are ever changing and things aren't the way that they were before, how do you just encourage parents to have that open space? Because I think that it's very necessary.
Absolutely.
But then some people just weren't taught that.
Right. Well, I tell you, my father wasn't involved in that part. He was just the provider.
Mm-hmm.
But my mother didn't teach us everything that we could have been taught.
Okay.
So her generation, the main thing, it was about church and school. It wasn't about college or anything beyond getting your high school diploma. So much. I'm talking about my household, my cousins, the people I went to church with.
Right.
Outside of that circle, it may have been different. Now, my mother, if she was living today, she would be 99 years old, right?
98.
98.
Yeah, because Uncle Miller would have been 100, right?
Okay, well, 98, 99, yeah, somewhere around it, yeah, 98. So anyway, so you can imagine what, just get food on the table,
Right.
We got these low-paying jobs, we're doing the best we can just to feed these children and clothe these children. And we go to church because we just trust God. That's our release. Outside of that, it was just, go to school, and get your high school diploma. That's what we're encouraged to do. And I think each of us did a little bit of college. I'm not going to that. But anyway, because I don't know, some of them might have degrees, I don't know. But anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is that the generations have changed drastically. And what I believe parents today can do, first of all, is just check out social media, television, and you can see how some parents are saying that my child is this, or the child is saying it as an adult. My mother made sure I did this, and that's why I am this. And I've had people in church to say, oh, she loves to read. She loves to read. And she teaches her doll babies. That's enough right there to say, okay, this child is going to be some type of a leader, instructor, whether it's in secular or whatever. And I would encourage any parent who's not doing that now to please start with your child as young so they can have the confidence in themselves.
Absolutely.
Not be ashamed, and if they make a mistake, say oops and keep it moving. As parents, it's so hard on the children. They don't know. They don't know how to live. They're learning. And of course, they're going to be inquisitive. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to try to get away with things that they know you said no. But you can't kill them for it. I don't mean literally kill, but you can't just destroy them for those things. You have to tell them, didn't I tell you? You got one more time. And the punishment has to be maybe a little more severe each time. And I'm not saying kill the child, whip them. I'm not saying that. but some things that you may have to hold back that you know is very, very dear to them. You know, you will not be going to your friend's house this weekend because. So I just encourage parents, and I think a lot of them are doing it now. They are identifying their children's purpose, their destiny, their gifts, and their talents, and their plan is to really further them in those areas. Now, maybe I also include teach your children how to save money and not spend it. Sneakers and all these designer clothes is not the key to success.
That's good.
That's really good.
That's that wisdom we was looking for on this episode. Now, I don't know if you guys saw the, Walter, if you can put the last comment that was up, I think it was, first name was Kenneth. Yeah, so I think he wanted to go back to something, but I think we're kind of keeping along those same lines of development. Creating that safe space has a lot to do with the development as well. But I think, Bishop, he wanted you to speak a little bit more on the whole nurturing aspect of what you were talking about, of what's in the heart. But I think we are keeping in that same, focus with what Lady G was just saying and what Erica was sharing. But I don't know if you wanted to give a little bit more on that.
Well, I of course, almost with Ken would invite, a little bit more about what he may be looking for, so I can make sure whatever whatever need he has is being addressed, or whatever he would like to have spoken to is being, we can hear it and speak to that. But I will say that I'll go to the text, right?
Shoot.
Is there's not a lot that's spoken about Moses' mother, right? Jochebed. And what she was a woman who had wisdom enough to put her son, move him from one risky situation to the next risky situation for his future. And that's part of what happens with my mom's heart and with mothers' hearts who see their child with love and know how to nurture that. Moses is, in just, I don't want to get too preachery, but Moses is living in a season where sons are being killed. And they're being killed right out of the womb. The instruction is that if one of these Hebrew ladies are having a child, while they're in the midst of labor, snatch the child and just kill it, if it's a male. Moses escapes that. I don't get too preachy. I get happy about that text because there's a whole lot that happens with midwives who are hearing God even during that time, and they won't do what they've been commanded to do because they're more afraid, and this is another word, they're more afraid of God than they are the system. And a lot of us right now feel like we've got to agree with the system and what the culture is saying than what we know. So, and that becomes, I'm going to get really controversial right now, for at least for the general public, but not so much the church, because that's where if we get into the culture, we will tell our children that they can decide what gender they want to be later on in life. That's culture talk, right? But somewhere along the line, somebody has to have more fear of God than they do of the culture. And they say, regardless of what the culture is saying, you were born with this, and so you're that. And if you don't feel like you're that, who told you that that doesn't feel the way you're feeling? Right. That's a whole nother discussion for another day. How can you tell me that you don't feel like you're a man if you don't know what other men feel like? Right. So, but that's a whole nother subject for another day. So we have to nurture them in a way, and what Moses' mom does is she says, they're either going to kill him, so I'll put him in a riskier situation. She puts him in a situation that is more risky than hiding him alone, because she realizes that she can no longer do what she's already done. Boy, I feel like preaching. And so since she can't do what she's any longer what she's already done, she's willing to take the next step to secure his future. And that is, she puts him in the presence of somebody who she believes may have the same values that she has. She doesn't put him near Pharaoh, but she makes sure that he's in eyeshot of Pharaoh's daughter. Because as a female to a female, I got a feeling she will pick up on the sensitivities of what is at risk in this child and be able to see in this child what I see. And then has the gall to be close enough and far enough away that when the sister says, will you need someone? Do you want me to get someone that will nurture or feed this child? She says, yes, because I know I can't do it. Well, go get his mama. Yeah. And so mama is still there. So if everybody believes that Moses, oh God, if you believe that Moses is Moses because he was raised in Pharaoh's house, you are neglecting his mother who stayed with him when he first got there. She was not only do we not talk about her doing the job, but she remained with him until he got weaned. She was there. So she was there until he was able to do things that she had taught him. So I think that, and I think so as we consider Mother's Day, that we've got to consider things like this. And nobody's talking about, people like her in Scripture. It's so funny because when you say her name, most of us, and I know, I was talking with Tanya before I came out, and Tanya was like, oh, yeah. And she was asking what we were going to talk about tonight. But most people, you say the name, it's like, who you mean Jeroboam? No, not Jeroboam. But that's because that's how little. But we can't forget that the Bible is written in patriarchy. That it comes from a male perspective, a male point of view, and so the emphasis of a lot of what's being communicated is not so much of what the mother did; it's about what Pharaoh did. And if we miss. Oh God help us, we miss what was happening behind closed doors to nurture the leader that you now experience. So, and I think it came from his mother. That's my mama.
And we can't leave fathers out. So fathers who are watching or who may watch later, please understand your role is crucial. Absolutely. In your child being developed to the point where their purpose and destiny that God has ordained for them in the earth is fulfilled. It's very important. Fathers. Where are the fathers? Where are they? They work very hard. They're working, but they still have to make sure that they are helping to nurture, establishing the rules, being the example of who is the head of the home, and the list just goes on and on. Sometimes I see with the mother's doing everything. She's working, she's cooking, she's cleaning. She's telling the sons what to do, the daughters what to do, and all of that. And daddy is somewhere working 3, 4, 5 jobs. Sometimes the money is not worth it.
Wow.
Sometimes the money is not worth your child's destiny, your child's failure in life. Marie said they need to know who they are. They need to know who they are so that they can be.
Yeah.
And they have to know that as parents that think about what Lady D just said about sometimes the money isn't that important, but it's more so your presence, right? So if I know what I am, or I'm coming to my parent and I'm saying that this is what I believe that I want to do. But it's important for as a child to know that my parents, both of them, have my back. I have their support. They're invested in what it is that I said, or they're invested in my idea. They're invested to try to do whatever he can do, whatever she can do to make sure, to see to it that it gets done. So I think that that's also important. And I think just thinking about fathers, the importance of them being there. But I think that even if you think about those fathers, it's important that their mother encourages them, even as a child, right? To be that father. That goes back to that nurturing thing, so that the father can know that your role is important. you are the head of the household, right? You are, children look up to their fathers so much, even girls and young boys look up to their fathers and want to have that support of both parents, of that father to lead them, because it's essential at the end of the day.
That is, I think that one of the things that we have in our culture today, family doesn't always look like what it has in times past, right? In that the family, there are a lot of parents out here who, maybe dad's gone on with the Lord, maybe dad's in the system, maybe mom's gone on to be with the Lord, maybe mom's in the system. We have so many different constructs of family today. But what I think we can't do, thank you, Archbishop, is we can't miss the value that both parents bring in the life of their child. That's why, I'm a big proponent of, I've got nieces and nephews and sister-in-laws and all this stuff. And I'm a big proponent of, regardless of what happens in the household, don't let the children be impacted in that negative way. Let them still see, for their own sakes, the care, the attention, the love, the commitment. And I think because those things bring value that is greater than what most of us probably imagine. We did years ago, Neil, you know it because you picked up on some of the work, but years ago, the Lord led us in Baltimore City. We're repping my Baltimore right now. The Lord led us to do something called Transforming. Spelled TRANSFORMEN. Trans meaning transformation, move, change for men. And part of the objective was to encourage men to get back in the life of their families. Regardless of whether if you were separated, divorced, never married, whether you had one child or whether you had 13 and 7 of them you weren't sure about. Whatever the case, is that those type of, because Adam and Eve, right, is that, just so I keep the scripture in here, right, is that a lot of us think that Adam comes, or Eve comes into existence solely because Adam was alone. It's not good for man to be alone. And so here comes Eve. But what she brings is not just simply that ability to call him to have companionship, but she brings that ability for what is missing in his life to be now manifested. And I think that that's the part, and so I'll say that again, what is missing becomes manifested. It's not about loneliness. It's not about, I don't have companionship. It is about, as a family unit, there's something missing if it's just the man by himself. And so God says you need woman because she manifests what you miss. It's almost like, the old stereotype, if you would, of the man who's driving the car, right? And then, we're trying to get to the destination, especially pre-GPS, right? And I used to have a map on the back seat of my car, but I know some streets that I'm going to. And Tanya wants to say, well, why don't you just pull over and just ask this person right here, they live here. And I got it. We're gonna get there, And about the third time that we see the gas station that I said we got, then I decided to pull over it. But she brings to the table, mothers bring to the table something that men cannot provide. I'm going to say that again. There is something that a mother brings to the table that a father and a man cannot provide. And I know that we're in a place where we have same-sex marriage. It's been legalized in our United States. But I'm still going to say that there are some things that if you are two men, that a woman brings to that family unit that two men cannot provide. If you're two women, there's something that a man brings to the table that two women cannot provide. And I'm not talking about, you can do stuff, but I'm talking about that emotional deposit, that support, that God-given peace that comes through. And that's my belief. And, you know, I know that even saying part of that, because I do a whole lot of work, I know I'll be criticized in some circles, but what I believe is true is what I believe is true. So.
So this conversation is going full circle.
Okay.
Full circle. Full circle. So I want to close out, but I want to make sure that we're not missing anything more from our guests.
There is one thing I would like to say to parents. Do not overprotect your child from life's real experiences.
Wow.
Failures that as a parent you've had, you know you're full of the Holy Ghost, we all are. Full of the Holy Ghost. But we don't always listen to them.
That's right.
And I think we need to share our stories, even the stories that we know of our parents and our grandparents and our aunts and uncles, because I believe that there are demons that have been assigned to families, and with love for whatever that negative trait is within the history of the family to remain there. So don't be ashamed. Of course, you got to be led of the Lord. But share your mistakes, share your errors that you've made, and make it a testimony of how God brought you through, so that your children and your children's children can use that as the foundation for them to stand on, or the story to believe, the experience rather, to believe that if it happened for her, it can happen for me. I might be in this place right now, but I bind. You know, don't forget prayer and use death and life in the power of your tongue. Use the power of your words to cause the demon to flee and never come back again. But I believe that there are demons that have been assigned to families, and we can look at our family history and we're like, oh my gosh, I went all the way back to 1918. You know, on my mother's side, and a little bit later on my father's side. So, oh, no wonder. That's why that's why we got all this. That's what's wrong with us.
I'm glad that you defined it, Lady D, as this spiritual warfare, or these demonic beings that have been assigned to families, because what we unfortunately have misconstrued it as church people, as generational curses. And demons who are assigned are different than generational curses, because once you become redeemed by the Lord, you are no longer under the curse. And you may still have some experiences that look like things that your family did, but it's not because of a curse. It's because of their assignment and your ability to agree with their assignment. But it's not the curse, because the curse has been broken. And so we need to make sure that always is something that is in our minds, that you're not living under a curse. You got habits. You got preferences.
He's going to and fro in the earth.
Absolutely.
Seeking. He's trying to mess us up. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm done, too. So.
Sorry. Okay.
No, I mean, we love it. You guys talking, we listening.
That's right.
So, Erica, actually, you closed out. I'm taking everything.
I've enjoyed this. This has been really good. Lady Deborah, Dennis, thank you so much for joining us. We'll definitely have you back again, because I want to know some more things. Like, just, you know, I'm gonna give her a heads up so she can give me a couple of stories about Bishop.
Bad stories.
I didn't say they have to be bad, but just some stories about you.
I can tell you all stories. I was there.
No, I want to hear from your mom. I want to hear from her. I want to hear from your mother and from Archbishop. So,
we'll bring both of them.
Right, we'll bring both of them.
Oh,
okay.
Not
you. Then you'll be quiet.
Oh.
Let your parents talk.
With the brothers.
Oh, with the brothers.
What are you trying to do?
We're just talking.
Enjoy our conversations with Bishop G.
Yeah.
And family.
And the people want to know. Give the people what they want.
Yes, ma'am.
Remember?
Yes, ma'am.
No, but it's been a good time.
It has.
It has been a great conversation. Again, Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
To every mother, enjoy yourselves, enjoy your families, enjoy your children. Lady D, I really appreciate your conversation and your candor and your, just being straightforward tonight. I really appreciate that. We thank you all for joining us. Again, remember to follow Bishop G on all the social media platforms. He has Instagram, he has Twitter, he has Facebook, he has a YouTube channel. He just.
Oh, don't even.
He's real fancy out here, okay?
Yes.
And
y'all did all of it. Don't play with me.
But go ahead. Give me my flowers. Thank you so much. But follow us on his YouTube channel as well. The podcast is on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, and so yes, send us questions. We only have one more episode in this season.
Yes.
Actually, it's been a nice journey, but we'll be right back here on the third Thursday of this month. Got any closing remarks?
Love you.
Happy Mother's
We love
Day.
y'all.
Happy Mother's Day.